Well, it's Saturday, it's raining, and I can't wait any longer. It's like 10 o'clock, so I gotta get started on this old beast. Picked up a grapple the other day and need to get auxiliary hydraulics run out onto the boom itself so that the jaws can close on the grapple, which involves tying into the hydraulics on the dozer, well, dozer chassis. On these old loader frames, there's a valve body in there, and there's one set of ports that has valve and control that's not being used. So I've got to track down a lever, a handle lever. I found one on the internet for 40 bucks on a scrap yard, and then picked up all the lines and hoses and everything yesterday. I may have underfigured on my hoses a little bit, we'll see. But using standard old pre-length hoses made out of like Baumgars, Menards, Tractor Supply kind of deal, and the fittings that I could pick up at Napa. So we'll get in there and run JIC fittings so it's an easy replacement. But yeah, I'll probably erect a tarp over the top of this thing for now, and we'll get started on it. But I'll show you real quick what I picked up here. This is a Haugen, or Haugen. It's one of their heavier duty grapples. Found it on Craigslist actually. About 13 to 1500 is what I picked it up for used. You tried to find or buy this thing new, you're looking at $5 grand. So my loader's not equipped with a quick detach like skid steer style front bucket assembly. Okay, here's the parts that I'm using right now. These bulkhead fittings are from Napa, and they're an Eaton part number 1351, and they are 1/2 inch. Now we've got a short little coupler going into that, and then the actual hydraulic fittings themselves are bulk amp number, or I'm sorry, Napa number 7251230. And what that will do is bring you up a 2-pack basically. It gives you the male and female settings in the same, so it's like a kit. But these bulkhead fittings is what will be the final termination, and hopefully I can use this block right here. We're basically going to be boring into it, putting these things in, so it gives it a nice stable platform to hook into. Now, as far as couplers and swivels go, the loader valve body itself, there's a plug in there, and that plug, the head of it, is 1.25 inches. So it's 1.25 inch socket or wrench is what you're going to need to take it out with. After that, you're going to be threading this guy here in. This is 3/4 boss to 8 JIC. 3/4 boss fitting to an 8 JIC. And there's your part number right there. It's a Gates valve. So you need 2 of them. They'll thread in your valve body. From the valve body, then you'll be going into this one here. That's a Delta 110, and this is a Baumgars Apache brand. So what you're looking for at that point is a 1/2 female JIC swivel to a 1/2 inch male pipe, because all these hoses are going to be male pipe. And so you're going to be going from male pipe into the JIC fitting that you just installed in your valve body. From there you can run your heart's content. I used a 60 inch and a 48 inch. I should have gone with 2 6s or a 6 and an 8. So now for coupling the two together, you're going to want this one right here, 1/2 inch female to 1/2 inch female pipe swivel. You want as many swivels in here as you possibly can, because when you're twisting on these lines at one end and it ain't twisting at the other, you're going to get yourself bound up in a mess. I love hydraulic lines that have swivels on both ends, because these things literally are like trying to fight a snake when you're trying to push them through somewhere. Alright, so there's the parts list. Let's get it going and get it put together. Alright, so without a whole lot of ado at this point, we've come to the realization that trying to snake this hydraulic line through the loader apparatus is not going to give us enough room to get it in there. So maybe you can see with the camera, maybe you can't. Down in here, it looks like just a big black hole on film. But to try to get it snaked in through the rest of these hydraulic lines in here, it's just physically not going to fit. I've got it through, and I may could get it to work I may could even get it in through this upper section here and out through the top side up there. But to get a second line in for the return is going to be near impossible. So what we've kind of figured out is that what we can do is I can run it out of the valve body right here. The valve body, where we're going with this, is right here and right here. So with these two guys here, the lines are going to have to follow this factory line setup here. But here again, we can get in underneath, but these lines slope and taper down, not allowing these extra half-inch lines to go in. So here's what we come up with. Weld in a couple little pegs through here. The hydraulic lines can pass in between. I weld in these two bushings back here that bolts will pass through. That'll support that platform quite nicely and allow me to run those hydraulic lines in underneath it all. I case my hydraulic lines in old fire hose, so it makes it kind of easy to help protect them. Particularly your VFD, county fire, whatever. Sometimes you can find a roll of this stuff for a little bit of nothing. There we go. A couple of studs welded in, or spacer blocks, and then a couple of bushings welded in, and factory floorboard fit right back down in place. Notched out for the hydraulic lines to pass through. So we'll get this thing bolted down and see where we're at from there. Have to install some hold downs up along the boom and get these lines installed, hooked up. Just get ready with them. Alright. I don't know if you can see this on the video, but it's 1.25 inch socket. That's what you're going to need to take these plugs out with. It's going to get real messy here in a second. We've already got them loosened up. We got our boss fittings handy and ready to go. And here comes the mess. These are O-ring seals, so you won't have to use any tape or anything on them. And the ones that you're going to get, once you get from Napa or the Gates or Eaton version, they're going to have an O-ring on them, so you'll be able to thread them in and use your same socket. Get them back in there. And they gave us this little trap door to play with. This will be fun trying to do it from the top side. Alright, wasn't as messy as it was the other day when I pulled the caps off. So go take them down and size them up. Yep. JIC will have a taper in here. It's real similar to the AN or Army Navy fitting. And then you have pipe on this side. Pipe is tapered as it goes in. And JIC has that cone style to receive. And like what I've got up in here, they've got a cone that goes into your receiver end here. Look at my toolbox. I need that size, and I want to say that's a 3/4. And if it's bigger than an inch, which it probably is, it's gonna be.
What size is that?
It's gonna be an inch or inch and 1/8, inch and 1/16, something like that. You can grab the other fit. Might be a 7/8. This stuff off a little bit too, because it never fully dries, so it sits in there and just it's kind of gooey. Now, the fun part is I don't know which one's which. So, trick is these things, you want to get them lined up right the first time, otherwise you do not want them to cross thread. Let's see if that's what it is. Look in my box over there, should be a 3/4 stubby. This is one that's about half this size. About 30 bucks a piece. Alright, so I was definitely short on my hoses. So instead of anchoring them down to the boom, we ran them out as far as we could. And for test fit purposes, to see if this grapple actually works, we just basically ran them all the way out, hooked them into the other. Grapple's still in the bed of the truck. But for test fit purposes, things fired up, it's worked up, and we'll get her fired up here and do a test run real quick. Alright, Logan, go ahead. Good deal. We'll wait for that plate to come in, and then I'll get some more hoses this week. We'll put her all together. Well, this has been a debacle from the beginning. When I first started this video, it was back in April, rainy, cold. It's now near the beginning of September. This quick attach plate has been a heck of a feat. Honestly, you could probably actually go buy one for about as much as I've got in this one here. But long story short, we finally got it sort of worked out and figured out what I'm dealing with now. Finally got the pins in here. When I welded these spacers in, they heated up, they shrank a little bit, and my 1-inch pins that I had going in there ended up sticking. So these are now 4140 steel, and they've been ground off about 20 thousandths. Also put a ring of weld around where they'll to prevent them from dropping any farther down below. The boom arms on the actual loader frame were coming too close and actually bending the bottom of the quick release pins. In hindsight, what I should have done is made these risers taller, as in wider, away from the actual plate. These are 6-inch, but with these older loader frames, it's tilting and coming in contact with the actual boom arm pivot points. So what I'm probably going to end up having to do is weld in some spacers down here to keep this plate in place, maybe put in some kind of stop mechanism so that when it tilts, I haven't quite figured out what I want to do there yet. So either way, the quick release with the pin system here, a lot of these, if you look at them in their design, they've got like a pivot arm in here, which that is your better option. However, for this one here, I had a 1/2-inch bolt that I threaded into the top of my actual rod, 1/2 inch there. brought it up, put a 7/16 bolt through this old grouser bar. This is some replacement grouser bar, so it's 1.5 inches wide by 1/2 inch, and it's a little bit heavier than regular mild steel. And then we ended up welding a stud over here. So it bends this 1/2 inch bolt that I cut off and put a nut, welded the nut to the top of the bolt to allow this to pass through. It works okay, and of course put a greaser in here so that the shaft itself stays greased. But this will prevent the weld ring, prevent these from dropping any farther down than they actually need to go, and we should be pretty well good on that one, as long as I can keep from tilting my grapple far enough over to damage my lower pins down here. Again, this plate is 1/2 inch, these are 1/2 inch. The main plate has a taper at the top, but yeah, what a debacle till we finally got this straightened out. Hopefully it'll work. Seems to be working okay. Maybe I'll do some brush pushing and see where we can go from there. Yep, picks up and down quite nicely. Ultimately, I'd love to put some little hydraulic cylinders in there to go done. A bit more of a close-up, you can see the pins. Just cut the bolt off and welded a nut on the top of it, and then actuated the rods in here so that you can get a good pivot point. Did it so that the rod, when it was downward, would actually be holding it into the actual hole. That way gravity would continue to push the thing downward and keep it engaged. A lot of these, when you look at them, they'll have a spring of some kind in there. It's only moving it up 2 inches. Made the handle extra thick and heavy so that I can do some beating on it if need be.